The war in Ukraine is currently in full swing. The Ukrainian military continues to heroically defend their land from the occupiers, and this is extremely difficult for them. This is the Warrior of Honor channel, and today we're going to talk about the incredible events that are unfolding on the very front and beyond. Traditionally, we start with an overview of the front and a map of hostilities. The main hostilities today are taking place near Bakhmut and the city of Volodar, located in the southeast of Ukraine. Speaking of Volodar, the Russian troops continue an active assault on this fortified area. In the last video we said that this settlement is extremely difficult to access for the Russian offensive, because it is a strong and fortified position of the Ukrainian troops. Today, this information has been confirmed, since it was not possible to take Volodar head-on with a lightning-fast assault. The statements of the Russian side about entering Volodar and its control again did not correspond to reality. According to the latest information, the Ukrainian military leadership made an incredibly quick move to withdraw its troops to the outskirts of the city and the subsequent counteroffensive. Ukrainian tanks literally entered the rear of the Russian army, which led to the rapid collapse of the Russian offensive in this direction. Russian troops have already had to defend themselves and solve the problem of a tank attack by Ukrainian troops. According to our estimates, this action is an incredible skill of the Ukrainian command, which is in conditions of extremely limited resources, unlike the Russian army, which has a quantitative superiority in absolutely all respects. However, the situation remains very difficult, as Volodar is controlled by artillery fire from two adjacent villages at once, Pavlovka and Mykolsky. The actions of the Ukrainian army force the Russian side to stop their attempts to actively attack. According to the basic rules of war, if a rapid offensive is stopped, it makes no sense to continue it at the same pace, since this leads to disorganization of the attackers and huge losses. From here, the Ukrainian army managed to establish its control over the territory adjacent to the city. This is very bad news for the Russians, because they can no longer continue to advance along their main axis of advance. The presence of Ukrainian forces inside the countryside means that the Russians must engage in positional combat within the city in the open. As we said earlier, this area is not strategically important, but is only a springboard for further offensive. Provided that the Volodar grouping is in danger of destruction, the Ukrainian command will be able to make a well-founded decision to withdraw troops to more fortified positions far from the front. So far, everything suggests that the rapid advance of Russia in this direction has been thwarted. Heavy fighting continues in the east of Ukraine, and specifically around the city of Bakhmut, which has long been known to us. As we said earlier, unsuccessful attempts to storm the city in the forehead did not bring any results to the Russian army, which forced them to follow the path of operational encirclement of the city. In this case, the Russian army is successful. Having captured the village of Klishevka, she managed to create a bridgehead for continuing the offensive in the south of Bakhmut. Judging by the outline of hostilities, the main goal of Russia at the moment is to cut the route supplying Bakhmut and the subsequent operational encirclement of the city. According to our information, the Ukrainian troops will continue to follow the example of the defense of the city of Severodonetsk, exhausting the advanced units of the Russian army and oppressing its offensive potential. The idea of the Ukrainian command is probably that it needs to weaken the Russian army before the Ukrainian spring counteroffensive. The Ukrainian army does not bring its reserves here and retains forward strike detachments, using mobile defense tactics. This suggests that in the future, we are waiting for a major turn in this conflict, with a potential seizure of the initiative by Ukrainian troops. The international front was rich in events. Recently, there was a breakthrough in the matter of supplying tanks to Ukraine. According to our information, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz decided to transfer Leopard 2 battle tanks to Ukraine. According to the publication, it is about providing Ukraine with at least one company of Leopard 2 A6 tanks. According to NATO standards, it is about 14 units of equipment. It is claimed that the German Leopard tanks are to arrive from the warehouses of the Bundeswehr. In the medium and long term, additional tanks may be prepared from stocks held by German industry. The main topic of the day is tanks for Ukraine. According to media reports, Germany has decided to transfer Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine, and the United States wants to transfer ABRAMS tanks. The president of Finland in Kiev confirmed the readiness of the country to transfer German tanks to the armed forces. The Prime Minister of the Netherlands announced that they want to buy 18 Leopard 2 tanks from Germany for the benefit of Ukraine. In general, according to ABC News, 12 countries have agreed to transfer about 100 German Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. Even louder news was the willingness of the United States to hand over the ABRAMS M1 tanks, their own advanced tank. The package of defense aid to Ukraine announced by the U.S. President the day before, which includes 31 ABRAMS M1 tanks, provides for the purchase of new combat vehicles for the armed forces. Along with more than 30 ABRAMS tanks, tractors, repair equipment, facilities for servicing and refueling tanks with special fuel will also be delivered to Ukraine, and training for Ukrainian soldiers will soon begin. The reason why there are 31 tanks is that there are exactly that many in the Ukrainian tank battalion. That's why we focused on the fulfillment of such a demand, said a high-ranking representative of the administration in her explanation of the U.S. President's statement. In addition, as reported in the White House, the Pentagon is currently working out the mechanisms for delivering fuel, as well as other equipment, which Ukraine will need for the operation and maintenance of ABRAMS. For this purpose, 8 M88 evacuation vehicles, tractors, will also be delivered to Ukraine. Another representative of the U.S. administration noted that the statement on the provision of ABRAMS tanks to Ukraine was the result of the diplomatic dialogue that the United States has conducted over the past few weeks with European allies and partners. In particular, during this time, President Biden communicated directly with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz several times in order to coordinate defense assistance to Ukraine. This also included the joint announcement of the U.S. and Germany on the transfer of Patriot air defense systems. At the same time, the administration did not confirm or deny that the provision of American ABRAMS to Ukraine was a prerequisite for Berlin to supply German Leopard tanks to the armed forces. These actions are objectively a turning point in the war. Offensive weapons in sufficient quantities were the main stumbling block in the ability of the Ukrainian army to liberate the territories. The Russian army initially puts pressure on quantity, so it was she who retained the largest military legacy after the Soviet Union. At a minimum, it has about 12,000 tanks in its arsenal, 3,000 of which have already been destroyed by Ukrainian troops. At the same time, she also has an incredible amount of artillery, which is the main means of combat in modern conditions. The tandem of tanks, artillery, and aiming from UAVs is the cornerstone in the conduct of combat in modern conditions. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to our channel to keep abreast of the latest news about the war in Ukraine, and also support our team on Patreon. We really need it. Thanks for watching, honor, and good luck.